I stood off to the side, in the shadows of the ballroom, watching a couple sway together on the dance floor. Their eyes were locked on each other, moving in sync as if they were the only two people in the room. The woman pressed against him as he pulled her closer, her breath quickening, her petite frame almost disappearing into his larger build. Their movements were smooth, him gliding with the ease of an athlete, and her keeping up surprisingly well. Everyone around them could sense something deep between them, not quite love, but definitely more than just a casual connection. Her honey blonde hair fell softly as she leaned into him, though it was clear that it was his firm grip guiding her every step, not her own desire to be there. Normally, seeing a couple like that might have stirred up a bit of jealousy in me, but I couldn't feel envy for something that involved my own wife, wrapped up in the arms of her boss. Instead, all I felt was a wave of anger and shame wash over me. This wasn't the first time we'd been to one of these company banquets, and every single person in that room knew Emma was married to me. I could see their eyes scanning the crowd, wondering where I was and when I'd make my move. They were expecting a scene, and truthfully, I wasn't far from giving them one. After what seemed like an eternity of 3 dances, the two of them left the dance floor and joined a group of colleagues at a nearby table. From where I stood, I saw the way she looked at him, the same way she used to look at me once upon a time. It had been a while since I'd seen that fire in her eyes, and seeing it now only fueled the disgust boiling up inside me. The pressure was building, and I knew it wouldn't be long before I exploded, but for the moment, I forced myself to hold it together. I couldn't stop wrestling with the storm of emotions tearing me apart. Anger, fear, and deep resentment over what I was watching, clashing with the memories of the love, trust, and respect I'd once had for her. It was a fight I knew I was losing. I was sinking fast into a pit of despair and self-pity, lowering my head in quiet defeat. I tried, God knows I tried, to save this marriage. For months, I'd been bending over backward, planning date nights, taking care of things around the house, shutting off the TV, and trying to start real conversations with her. But each time, she'd just walk away, uninterested. I'd left flowers for her, written her heartfelt notes, cards filled with love, only to find them tossed aside in the trash without a second glance, even sending flowers to her office when ignored. I kept asking myself, what more could I possibly do? Pushing those bitter thoughts away, I made my way over to the small bar in the corner of the room. Laura, and one of Emma's old co-workers, was standing there, her glass half empty. "Enjoying yourself?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "These things are always a good time," she replied, her voice slurring a bit. "Richard sure does love the free booze." I gave her a quick smile and raised my empty glass. "Yeah, me too. By the way, have you seen Connor's wife around? She's always so elegant and great to talk to." I hoped my anxiety wasn't showing through, but Laura and didn't seem to notice. "Oh, didn't Kels tell you? Connor hit her with divorce papers today. Guess she wasn't holding up her end of the marriage," she said, her words loose and unfiltered, thanks to the alcohol. It was oddly fitting for her to spill something like that in such a blunt way. "No, she didn't mention anything," I replied, lying through my teeth. "But I didn't get much time to chat with her before we came. We both rushed straight here from work." The truth was, we'd taken the whole afternoon off to get ready, but Emma never brought it up. She didn't seem to care enough to share anything with me anymore. I topped off my drink and grabbed a glass of white wine for Emma before walking over to where she and Connor were standing, deep in conversation. They were so wrapped up in each other that they didn't even notice me approach. "Kels, I got you some wine," I said, handing her the glass. She jumped, startled by the sound of my voice. "Oh, you scared me," she said, taking the glass with a smile that felt forced. "Thanks, sweetheart." The tension was thick in the air. Everyone at the table suddenly seemed fascinated by the tablecloth or something across the room. Nobody wanted to look directly at me. A younger guy, maybe mid-20s, caught my eye and grinned, like he was amused by the situation. Our eyes locked for a second, and his smile faded as he, too, found something else to focus on. By the time 1 in the morning rolled around, most of the guests had left the hotel hall. But Emma? She didn't seem in any hurry to leave her little bubble with Connor. I finally leaned in and said, "We should probably get going, babe." The babysitter's still waiting, and we promised we wouldn't keep her past 2. Yeah, you're right, she replied, sounding reluctant. Let's head out. See you Monday, Connor. She gave him a smile, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me, knowing the awkwardness was finally coming to an end. Good seeing you, Connor, I said, offering him a handshake. His grip was firm, almost like he was trying to prove something. He was taller than me, by about 3 inches, and a bit heavier, though I noticed he was starting to soften around the middle. Still, I pressed back with more force than usual, holding his gaze. There was something smug in his eyes, something self-righteous that made my stomach turn. Finally, he let go, and we said our goodbyes. We left the ballroom, waving to the few remaining guests, and headed to the car. The drive home was silent, though Emma wore a glowing smile the entire way. When we got home, Emma went to check on Sophia, our 9-year-old daughter, while I paid the babysitter and drove her home. When I got back, I headed upstairs, only to find Emma already asleep in bed. After checking on Sophia one last time, I made my way to the bathroom, then quietly slipped into the spare room. I knew there wouldn't be any closeness between us tonight. That wasn't even a question anymore. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, struggling to remember the last time Emma and I had been intimate. As my eyes grew heavy, the familiar cracks and shadows above me were the last things I saw before I finally drifted into a restless sleep. Saturday morning came early, and as I forced myself out of bed, I mentally ran through the list of things I needed to tackle. Sophia was already in the living room, completely absorbed in whatever cartoon was on. From the doorway, I gave her a half-hearted wave. "Have you had breakfast yet?" I asked, though I could already see the cereal bowl in her hands. "Yep," she called back, waving her spoon around, sending little drops of milk onto the carpet. "All right, just keep it down. Your mom's still sleeping, and I've got work to do in the office," I reminded her, not expecting much. "Got it, Dad," she replied with way more enthusiasm than I expected, her voice louder than necessary. It made me chuckle despite everything. By 8:30, I was on the phone with my lawyer, Jack. He usually worked from home on Saturdays, and I was counting on him picking up. "Morning, Jack. It's Ethan Clark," I greeted, trying to sound composed. "Morning, Ethan. I'm guessing this isn't a call about anything good, is it?" he said, cutting straight to the point. He already knew where this conversation was heading. "You guessed right. It's time to get the ball rolling. I heard Connor served his wife with divorce papers yesterday. Do you know if Emma's lawyered up yet?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Not that I've heard, but I'll double-check for you. How about we meet in half an hour at the usual coffee shop? Bring those forms I sent over, and we'll get them signed and notarized. We'll file the paperwork Monday morning and serve her at lunch." Jack laid out the plan calmly, as if he'd done this 1,000 times before. "That works for me. See you soon," I confirmed before hanging up. I arrived at the coffee shop a little early, gave the barista a polite smile, and grabbed my order. I settled into a chair by the fireplace, letting my thoughts drift. Divorce. It felt unreal. I never thought I'd be in this position, about to end things with the woman I once believed was my forever. It's hard to say when exactly life starts to fall apart. For me, it was something as simple as a traffic ticket. It was one of those red light camera tickets that come in the mail, and when I opened it, I actually laughed. I knew right away it was Emma. She always rushed, headlights blaring, whenever she was running late. But as I looked closer, that laugh caught in my throat. The photo showed Emma, all right, but there was a man's arm resting on the seat beside her. His face wasn't visible, but I didn't need to see it to know who it was. At first, I told myself it wasn't a big deal. Maybe it was a work meeting or lunch. But the date on the ticket stuck out, March 5th. That night, she had told me she was picking up clothes for Sophia at Laura's house after work. Back then, it didn't seem suspicious. Laura was always generous like that. But something gnawed at me, so I looked up the intersection on Google Maps. It was on the other side of town from Laura's place. Even then, I tried to convince myself it was all innocent. But as I pieced things together from the past few months, it became harder to ignore the sinking feeling in my gut. Emma had been distant for a while. She kept to herself during the holidays, and by January, we were barely speaking. Our conversations had dwindled down to work, Sophia, and the basics of daily life. No more talks about the future, no more dreams of vacations or growing old together. For a long time, I'd been sitting on a trust fund. My great-grandfather had bought land in the Pacific Northwest ages ago and sold parts of it as the nearby town expanded. When he passed, I inherited some of those proceeds, and when my grandfather died, it grew even more. I'd never touched the money. Our life was comfortable enough that we didn't need it. Then, after my parents passed, the family property fell into my hands, combining with the trust fund. We had a solid financial future, and Emma and I had always worked to build on that, making sure we were secure. Before we got married, I had a prenuptial agreement in place. It protected the trust and other family assets. We'd updated our prenup over the years, but there was always a clause about what would happen in the event of a divorce. We'd even set up a plan for Sophia's education, just in case something happened to me or if we ever split up. I was always careful to stay prepared, keeping legal and financial advisors on hand. When I first sensed something was off with Emma, I reached out to my lawyer to talk things over. I wasn't ready to make any drastic moves, but I needed to know my options. He wasn't worried about the financial side of things. We were well covered there. He suggested hiring a private investigator to dig into Emma's behavior, but all the PIs he worked with were swamped at the time. I don't want to wait. This has been eating at me for too long. Do we have any other options? I asked, desperate for some kind of action. There's one guy, Jack said, sounding hesitant. We call him Danny the Rogue. He's a former cop, but let's just say he's got a bit of a reputation. Got booted from the force for some shady dealings, but he can start immediately. I wouldn't recommend keeping him on for long, though. I couldn't help but laugh. Danny the Rogue? Why do you call him that? He's earned it, Jack chuckled. He's trying to clean up his act, but I wouldn't say he's squeaky clean. He'll get the job done. But we need to make sure everything's legal and above board if we find anything worth acting on. Well, if he's legit, I don't care what they call him. Let's just get this over with. I knew Danny, the rogue investigator, wasn't exactly above board. He had a reputation for gathering evidence, photos, videos, emails, that sometimes blurred the lines of legality. But everything he found was irrefutable proof. As long as it stays legal, we'll stick with him for now, I said. We can switch to a more reputable investigator once we have what we need. Think he can start today? I asked. I'll call him, Jack replied. I'll keep you updated. I spent the rest of the day handling paperwork with Jack and Danny, making sure everything was kept separate from our joint accounts. I didn't want Emma to catch on, especially if, by some miracle, this was just a rough patch. I still wanted to believe that we could fix things, that this wasn't the end. But deep down, I already knew it was. I kept trying, though, desperately trying to save our marriage. I showered her with affection, took care of the house, did anything I could to show her I still loved her. But no matter what I did, I was met with cold rejection. Emma had already checked out, and I was starting to realize I was fighting for something that no longer existed. Then, on Thursday afternoon, Jack called. Danny had gathered the evidence. I wasn't ready, but I went to Jack's office anyway, knowing I had no choice. What I saw was worse than I could have imagined. Danny had gathered hours of footage, photos, call logs, everything. It was all there, staring me in the face. Emma and Connor weren't just having an affair. They were like a couple, happy and intimate in ways I hadn't seen Emma in years. They were laughing together, touching each other, completely wrapped up in each other's world. It made me sick. I watched as Emma and Connor were together, raw and uninhibited. I was torn between being disgusted by what I saw and impressed by how thorough Danny's investigation had been. He had left no stone unturned, and now I knew why they called him Danny the Rogue. Seeing Emma like that, with Connor, was soul-crushing. I could understand why she might be attracted to him. Connor was tall, athletic, and charismatic, the type of guy people were naturally drawn to. A former college baseball star, he had taken over her department a year ago, giving him ample time to slide into her life. But I had trusted her. I never thought she'd betray me like this. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. My chest tightened, and I struggled to breathe. My vision blurred as I leaned forward in my chair, trying to steady myself. It was like my whole world was collapsing around me. I had lost my wife, my partner, the mother of my child. Emma wasn't the woman I thought she was anymore. She wasn't mine anymore. And then it got worse. Jack played an audio recording from the day before. I heard Emma's voice, soft but excited, like a woman in love. "Do you really love me?" she asked, hopeful. "Yes, baby. You're perfect. I love you, and I want us to be a family," Connor replied, his voice full of confidence. "You mean you, me, and Sophia?" Emma asked. "Exactly. We'll divorce Ethan and Rachel, and we'll be happy," Connor said without hesitation. There was a long pause. I could hear Emma processing it, realizing what he was asking of her. "You really love me, Kels?" Connor pressed. "Yes, I do," Emma admitted. "I hadn't thought seriously about leaving Ethan until now." Connor jumped on her hesitation. "Ethan can't give you what I can. You'll have everything. You'll be the center of attention, living a life he could never dream of." His arrogance was palpable. I could imagine his smug face as he talked about me like I was nothing. "Losing Sophia would devastate him," Emma said softly. "He's a good father. I'll be a better father than he could ever be. In a year, she won't even want to visit him," Connor said, his voice dripping with confidence. "Why do you hate him so much?" Emma asked, sounding confused. "He's beneath you, Emma. He's weak. Content with mediocrity. Did you know he's just a plant manager? Sure, 400 employees, highest production, but he's still working for someone else. He's a beta. No ambition. Didn't even bother getting an MBA. I could crush him in my sleep." Connor's words were like venom, and I could feel the anger building inside me. But Emma didn't back down. "Don't underestimate Ethan," she said, defending me. "He's tougher than you think. He ran with a rough crowd, nearly went down the wrong path. He's good with guns, you know. That's why he didn't go to college right away. He turned his life around." For a split second, I felt a strange sense of pride. But it didn't change the fact that she was defending me while lying in bed with him. "Promise me you won't hurt him," Emma said, her voice softening. "Ethan's Sophia's father. I don't want any violence. Not Ethan for her sake, and not you for mine." "I won't," Connor promised. "But you're mine now, Emma. Let's be real." "You're right," she admitted, the words cutting deep. "You're my man now." I wished it wasn't true, but I could hear it in her voice. She had already made her choice. "How are we going to handle the divorces?" she asked, all business now. "I'll serve Rachel first. She's unstable, and we haven't been intimate in over a year. It'll be a clean split, 50-50ths. "Okay," Emma said, "but you need to file first. I want everything to be in place before I talk to a lawyer." Even now, she was securing her future, making sure she didn't risk anything. And then, in a final gut punch, Connor pulled her close and said, "Come here, woman." I motioned for the recording to stop. I didn't need to hear any more. Glancing at Jack, I wrestled with my thoughts, struggling with how to handle everything. "You strike first, Ethan," Jack advised. "But what if she changes her mind?" I asked, still clinging to a faint hope that Emma might turn things around. "They rarely do, Mr. Clark," he said solemnly. "Once they've gone this far, there's usually no coming back." His words sank deep, and I knew he was right. I looked at Danny, the rogue investigator, properly for the first time. He wasn't the rough character I had imagined. Instead, he was in his 30s, fit, and dressed in a sharply tailored suit. He had an air of professionalism and insight that surprised me. He didn't seem like the scoundrel I had expected. "Would you even want her after everything you've learned?" Danny asked, echoing Jack's earlier advice. His question cut straight to the heart of the matter. "You're probably right, Danny," I admitted, glancing back at Jack. "Give me a couple of days to decide. I need some time to think." "Of course, Ethan," Jack said. "Shall we go ahead and draft the documents now? You can finalize them later, or we can halt the process if you change your mind." "Yes," I replied after a moment of hesitation. "Let's get things started, but I'll make the final call later." As we wrapped up, Danny handed me his business card. "Here's my personal number, Ethan. In case you ever need me," he said with a slight smile. "Thanks, Danny," I said, grateful for his professionalism. "Call me Ethan, though." Danny nodded. "Thank you, Ethan. And just so you know, if you decide to pursue a little revenge, I know some people who can help with that too. They don't call me Danny the Dastard for nothing." He grinned as he spoke. I smiled, unsure of what to say. "Nice to meet you, Danny. I'll reach out if I need to. Though I doubt I'd go through with anything against Emma, it's good to know I've got support." Danny gave a quick nod before leaving, driving off in his car. That weekend, I couldn't think of much else. I replayed the entire situation in my head, over and over. Emma seemed completely unaware of the gravity of the situation, as if she had already decided our family's fate. It was maddening to think about the future. Our daughter Sophia being raised by Connor, that arrogant man taking my place. The idea was unbearable. Anger, doubt, and fear clouded my mind. The loss of my family and my identity weighed heavily on me, pulling me deeper into despair. It wasn't until Sunday morning, sitting on the back porch with a pounding headache, that clarity hit me. I realized that, no matter what I did, I had already lost Emma. There was no getting her back. The question wasn't whether I could save my marriage anymore. It was about how I would handle the fallout. Would I just let things unfold, or take control of the situation? The saying lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way came to mind, and I knew I couldn't stand by and let these two schemers control my life. I had to lead, even if it meant walking away from everything I thought I was fighting for. On Monday morning, I called Jack. "It's Ethan Clark," I said. "Good morning, Ethan," Jack answered. "Any clearer on what you want to do?" "Yes," I said firmly. "I want you to complete the paperwork. Use only the legal photos Danny obtained, and split everything evenly. Should we sell the house?" "Yes," Jack replied. "Since you used a low-interest loan from your trust to purchase it, the proceeds can be divided, but you'll repay the full loan amount and any interest accumulated. I also want to allocate $200,000 from my trust to Emma," I said, hesitating slightly. "It's a gesture of goodwill. Maybe if she knows she won't be left high and dry, she'll be more cooperative." "Are you sure about that?" Jack asked. "Legally, you're not required to give her anything from your trust. The prenuptial agreement covers you." "I know," I said, "but I've thought it over. We were partners for years, and while she betrayed me, I can't ignore the fact that she put in effort too. Maybe if she has something, she won't lean so much on Connor. And honestly, she deserves better than being tied to him after this is over." "I understand," Jack replied. "What about Sophia?" "I want primary custody of Sophia," I said. "I know it won't be easy, but maybe Danny can dig up something on Connor. I've heard rumors about his college days, and if there's anything that makes him look unfit as a father figure, I want it on record." "I'll have Danny investigate," Jack said. "But if primary custody doesn't work out, we can draft a generous shared custody plan. Does that sound good?" "Yes," I agreed. "If I can't get full custody, I want to make sure Sophia is well taken care of and that we have the best possible arrangement." "Understood," Jack replied, taking notes. "There's more," I said after a pause. "I want to file a lawsuit against Connor for alienation of affection, and I want to make sure his wife, Rachel, knows everything. I'll help her with her divorce if she needs it. I want her fully informed, within legal limits." Jack seemed to hesitate. "Ethan, you're really shaking things up here. This could escalate quickly." "I know," I responded, "but I'm not letting them get away with this without a fight. I'll draft the infidelity divorce papers for Rachel and make sure she's brought into the loop," Jack assured me. "We'll see how it plays out." "And one more thing," I added. "I want to sue Emma's employer. It's unprofessional for a company to ignore an affair between a superior and a subordinate, especially given Connor's position as her boss. Let's rattle the cage, even if it doesn't go far." Jack nodded. "I'll prepare the necessary documents, but this could be costly and time-consuming, Ethan." "I know," I said, "but it's worth it." Jack chuckled. "As your dad used to say, hiring a lawyer is just negotiating the price." He wasn't wrong. I laughed softly. He was right about that. "You're not obligated to give her any of your trust, remember," Jack said again, reminding me of my legal footing. "I know," I replied, "but if I leave her financially stable, maybe she'll cooperate more. She deserves something for the years we spent together, even if she's leaving me for him. But Connor? There's no way I'm letting him benefit from this. My wife should have been enough for him." As I spoke, A surge of anger hit me, thinking about how Connor had taken the life that should have been mine. Despite everything, I always try to be fair in my relationships, and I wanted to treat Emma fairly, even if she hadn't done the same for me. My only solace was knowing Sophia would one day understand why I made these choices when she saw how our family fell apart. Before I forget, Jack, hold off on filing anything for now, I said, catching myself. I want everything prepared and ready, but I'd prefer if we wait for her to make the first move. That way, I can spend more time with Sophia in the family home. I know there will come a moment when I have no choice but to act, but I want to hold out until I absolutely can't bear it anymore. Got it, Jack replied. We'll keep everything undated and notarized until you're ready. I work from home on Saturday mornings, so feel free to call then if needed. We can't file anything until Monday morning, but I'll have someone ready to serve the papers as soon as the doors open. That's the plan. Goodbye for now, I said as I hung up. I pulled Danny's business card from my pocket and dialed his number. Danny, it's Ethan Clark. How's it going? I'm good, he replied. You ready for some dirty work? Kind of, I responded. But I need you to hold off until I give the green light. No problem, Ethan. What's the game plan? Want to meet up? He asked. Yeah, give me an hour, I said. I was already waiting at the coffee shop when Danny pulled into the parking lot. After grabbing a coffee and a snack, we sat down. I want all the damning evidence, photos, videos, recordings, everything, I said. And I need a way to anonymously send it to Rachel Edwards. Email seems like the best route. No problem. I know someone who operates on the dark web, Danny responded casually. How about posting the video on an adult site? Or sending nasty messages to Emma's parents or coworkers? Man, this guy was devious. No, I said firmly. I don't want to humiliate Emma to the point where she leaves town with Sophia. Despite everything, I still love her, even if she doesn't love me anymore. I slid an envelope with $5,000 in cash across the table. This should help you get started. Let me know if you need more. Danny took the money, then glanced at me. $3,000 should be enough. I'll take the rest as an advance. I might need it later. At least he was straightforward. Stay on standby until I contact you, I instructed. I want to catch them off guard, and I have my reasons for letting them make the first move. Also, we need information on Rachel Edwards' health issues. That might impact decisions down the line. Can you handle that? Absolutely, Danny replied. And Jack mentioned you're looking into Connor's college years. I'll see if I can dig up something useful in case there's a custody battle. We finished our coffee, exchanged a few stories from Danny's cop days, and then parted ways. That meeting was 3 months ago. As my mind returned to the present, Jack arrived at my home, followed by his assistant and Danny. Ready to proceed? Jack asked as we sat down. Yes, it seems that way. Danny, do we know if Emma has sought legal counsel yet? As far as I know, no, Danny replied. I checked her email after Jack's call and didn't find anything. I'll do a deeper check today and should know more by Monday morning. Danny grinned, giving me a knowing wink. What about Connor? I asked, a glimmer of hope in my voice. Any skeletons in his closet? He was under investigation during his fraternity days, Danny revealed. There were allegations of date rape, drugs, and underage girls at parties. I've already handed everything over to Jack. Jack confirmed, I have them in case we need this for the custody hearing. He retrieved the documents we've been working on for the past few months and showed me where to sign. After signing, Jack's assistant notarized them. Turning to Danny, I said, can you find out who Rachel Edwards' lawyer is and let Jack know? Jack, if her lawyer's competent, could you share our legal file with him? What if he's not up to par? Jack asked. Then we'll figure out another way to connect you with Rachel. But I'd prefer to handle this properly. Jack, can I collect the documents Monday afternoon? I want to give Emma the paperwork personally, then you can serve her officially on Tuesday. Jack nodded. We'll be ready. I'll prepare the server for Tuesday morning. I think we should notify Rachel soon since she'll likely hear about it anyway, I added. Jack, go ahead and share the file with Rachel's lawyer on Monday, assuming it doesn't interfere with my conversation with Emma. I leaned back, exhaling deeply. Things should be fully underway by Wednesday. Ethan, have you considered where Emma will stay on Monday night? Jack asked suddenly. I thought for a moment. Would it be an issue if she stays at the house for a few days? Legally, no. Unless a restraining order is filed and she consents, you can share the house. But I wouldn't recommend sharing a bed, Jack warned. A less scrupulous lawyer could use that against you. I won't be sharing a bed with her, I replied. We're not intimate anymore, so I don't see an issue. But our documents give me temporary control of the house and custody of Sophia, right? Yes, Jack said, until her lawyer files a motion to contest it. Then I'll give her a week to find somewhere else, I concluded. I just want to make sure everything stays smooth for Sophia's sake. As I sat there, a mix of determination and sadness washed over me. My world was changing, but I was ready to face whatever came next. Or until we all reach a consensus, I replied. I meant actually sharing the same bed. It might give off the wrong impression, Jack explained. Don't worry, we're not sharing a bed at all, I assured him. Turning to Danny, I asked, what did you find out about Rachel's health? She's been dealing with depression and bipolar disorder for years. Her meds have lowered her libido, so Mr. Wonderful went looking elsewhere, Danny said with a smirk. I'm not sure I want to know how you got that info, I remarked. Danny just grinned while Jack pretended to be shocked. Does any of this matter for our case? I asked Jack. Not immediately, but it might come into play later when we talk about guardianship or living arrangements, Jack replied. He jotted some notes down on his iPad. We wrapped up our discussion, finalizing details for the coming week, and went our separate ways. The rest of the weekend felt heavy. Emma remained oblivious, as usual. On Sunday, I arranged for my aunt to pick up Sophia from school on Monday and take care of her overnight, giving me time to talk things over with Emma. My aunt's farm outside the city was one of Sophia's favorite places, so she was thrilled to go. I explained to her that her mom and I needed some time alone to talk, and though she was curious, she accepted the explanation. I slept in the spare room again on Sunday night, and Emma didn't say a word about it, just let out a sigh of relief when she saw me heading there. As I lay awake, running through my checklist in my head, I finally drifted off. Monday morning came quickly. I contacted my VP of operations and requested a week off, then briefed my assistant and senior production manager to handle things while I was away. By 1 p.m., I was in Jack's office, surprised to find Danny there as well. The office was buzzing with activity, and a stack of papers sat on Jack's desk. Ethan, we filed the paperwork at the courthouse this morning, Jack said, handing me Emma's documents. Her papers will be officially served at your house around 9 a.m. on Tuesday. Does that work for you? Yeah, that should be fine. I'll try to convince her to take the rest of the week off. I'll let you know if anything changes, I replied. Great, Jack said. Oh, and Danny found Rachel's lawyer. He's quite good. We shared our files with him, and he's considering a countersuit for infidelity, aiming for a larger share of the assets. Good to know, I said. Anything else? Just an update. Emma has an appointment with her lawyer next week, based on her calls and emails, Danny added. Thanks, Danny, I replied, grateful for the updates, but hoping I wouldn't need to get any deeper into the mess. I felt like the ball was now in Emma and Connor's court. After leaving Jack's office, I texted Emma, Kels, will you be home by 5:30 tonight? Why? What's going on? She replied, nothing serious. I've been preoccupied, and I want to catch up tonight. Aunt Alex is picking up Kate and keeping her overnight, so I'll bring dinner home. Any requests? How thoughtful. Ready? I'll have dinner ready at 5:30, she texted back. I felt guilty setting her up like this, but it had become a necessary routine lately. I hoped she saw it as me making an effort to be affectionate, but I knew what was really coming. Emma got home around 5:15 and changed while I set the table. I poured us both a glass of wine and sat down, waiting. She joined me, taking a long sip of her drink as we exchanged light conversation. She seemed completely unaware of what was about to happen. So, what's your schedule like for the rest of the week? I asked casually after we finished eating. Are you trying to make plans? She asked, giving me a sideways glance. No, I said, keeping my tone neutral. I thought you might want to take the week off after we talk. Why would I need to do that? She asked, her curiosity piqued. You'll understand soon, I replied, placing an envelope on the table in front of her. Emma eyed the envelope, then looked back at me, taking another sip of wine. I kept my voice steady. I know about you and Connor. I know you're planning to file for divorce. She blinked, clearly shocked, and coughed slightly before staring at me, her expression blank. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out how I had found out and what her next move should be. "What are you talking about?" she finally asked, still trying to play dumb. "I know you're in love with him. I know you're planning to take Sophia and leave me," I said, opening a bag and sliding a few photos across the table toward her. Emma sat there, silent, her eyes fixed on the photos. She looked up at me, and in that moment, I knew everything had changed. Her eyes widened as she picked up the photos, scanning through them with trembling hands. I noticed her eyes glistening, and then came the telltale hiccup that always accompanied her emotional distress. "I'm so sorry, Ethan Hugh. I never wanted this to happen. I don't even know what to say," she murmured, her gaze dropping to the table. "I understand, Kels. I've known about your plans for months. I've had time to process it, to some extent," I said, trying to keep my voice calm despite the bitterness rising inside me. "But it doesn't change how painful and disappointing this is for me." I took a moment to collect myself, tamping down the growing anger. "What I need to know is, was there something I did, or didn't do, that pushed you toward Connor?" I asked quietly. Her head shot up. "Oh God, no," she said, meeting my gaze for a brief second before looking away again. "It wasn't you. You were a wonderful husband and father. I think it just happened. I fell for him, and I'm ashamed of it." Her voice cracked, and I felt an odd mix of relief and crushing disappointment. Nothing I did caused this. It was just her choice. She had simply fallen out of love with me and into his arms. It was clear now. Our marriage was over. The only thing left was the paperwork. I handed her the divorce agreement. "Here are the terms. I've already filed, so you won't need to do that. If you agree to my terms, they're straightforward. The prenup remains in effect, which means my trust fund is off limits. I'm offering to sell our joint assets and split them equally, including the house. Since I filed first, I'm asking for full custody of Sophia with minimal child support. You'll have flexible visitation, and I'll keep her on my insurance. You'll need to arrange for your own health coverage." I paused, watching her reaction as I continued. "You can keep your 401k, your investments from the marriage, and your inheritance from your mom. I'm not asking for anything that's rightfully yours. We'll divide the investments we made together. Sophia and I will stay in the house until it sells. I'm also offering you $200,000 from my trust to help you get settled. You may want to consider a prenup if things move forward with Connor." Emma sat quietly, absorbing the details. "I think I should have custody of Sophia," she finally said, her voice soft. "She needs her mother." "I agree that Sophia needs her mother," I responded. "But I don't trust Connor with our daughter. He's going to try to win her over with gifts and charm, and I can't allow that. He couldn't have his own child, so now he wants mine. I'm already generous in letting him have you, but he's not taking Sophia." She winced at the harshness of my words, but I wasn't holding back. "I understand you'll want to discuss custody further, and we'll let the lawyers handle that," I continued. "But for now, Sophia will stay with me until we figure out a better arrangement." I softened my tone. "You can stay in the master bedroom for a few nights while you sort things out," I offered. "I still love you, Emma. I always thought we'd grow old together, but this is tearing me apart. My world is falling apart, and I'm trying my best to be fair. But if you or Connor push me, I won't hesitate to push back." Emma looked up, sensing the frustration in my voice. "You've seen what I'm capable of. So, please, let's keep things civil. It's for Sophia's sake. I want us to be good co-parents, to show her that we can still respect each other." I leaned back in my chair, exhaling deeply. "I don't want this to turn into a drawn-out, bitter battle. You're going to be formally served tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I arranged for it to happen here at the house, so you won't be caught off guard at work. I think it'd be best if you took the rest of the week off." Emma's face paled. She had lost her appetite and looked visibly unwell, possibly realizing the gravity of her actions. She had destroyed our life together, and now the reality of it was settling in. "Ethan, you clearly had a plan and outmaneuvered us. I don't know how you did it, but you did," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'll notify work and stay home until Wednesday. Do you think Aunt Alex can keep Sophia tomorrow night too?" "Yes, I'll call Aunt Alex," I said, nodding. "It makes sense to keep Sophia home from school tomorrow, so we can explain everything. We'll send her back on Wednesday." Emma nodded quietly, gathering some papers and retreating to the master bedroom. She locked the door behind her, but it didn't bother me. I had already moved most of my things to the spare room. Watching her leave, I realized she needed time to process everything that had just happened. As I sat alone in the dining room, the weight of the situation hit me fully. My marriage was over. The life I had envisioned with Emma was gone. But for Sophia's sake, I knew I had to keep going. There was no other option. I phoned my aunt to explain the family situation, and she agreed to keep Sophia for an extra night, bringing her back Wednesday morning. I also informed Sophia, who was puzzled but accepting. I assured her that her mom and I would explain everything on Wednesday. As I tidied up and got ready for bed, I heard Emma murmuring on the phone behind her closed door, followed by quiet sobs as she mourned our broken marriage. Early the next morning, I heard Emma downstairs getting ready for work. At 9 a.m. sharp, she accepted the package, excluding the more sensitive materials. Afterward, she grabbed her things and left without mentioning where she was going, probably to meet Connor, her lawyer, or someone else sympathetic to her situation. Later in the day, Jack called to inform me that Connor and their company had received our legal claims. Surprisingly, Rachel had also countersued Connor. Jack cautioned me to stay vigilant, as Connor had allegedly made threats against me. Although I didn't expect Connor to act recklessly, I decided to take precautions. I retrieved my .45 ACP from the safe, loaded it, and kept it close by as I watched TV. A few hours later, while standing at the sink, I noticed a black BMW pull into my driveway. Connor jumped out, enraged, and grabbed a baseball bat from the trunk. Sensing danger, I rushed back to my chair, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. I reported to the operator that my wife's boyfriend was outside with a baseball bat, trying to break in. As I locked the door, I heard another car pull up, followed by voices and screams, indicating Emma's arrival. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the house as Connor shattered the front door and stormed in, screaming threats. With my hand on the pistol, I remained calm, watching as he swung the bat wildly, Emma pleading with him from outside. "I took your wife, now I'll take your daughter too," Connor yelled, his eyes filled with fury. I allowed him to come closer before I drew my weapon. He kept advancing, the bat raised high above his head. I didn't hesitate. At 25 feet, the sound of the first shot rang out, followed by a second in quick succession. Connor staggered but kept moving forward. A third shot dropped him to the ground. My focus stayed on him as Emma screamed outside, narrowly avoiding the bullet that splintered the door near her head. The room filled with the sound of sirens. Officers arrived quickly, and in the confusion, they cuffed Emma outside by the shattered door while others pointed weapons at me, ordering me to drop my gun. Dazed but compliant, I followed their commands. Connor was pronounced dead at the scene. In the days that followed, I learned more about what had led to Connor's breakdown. The simultaneous arrival of my lawsuit and Rachel's divorce papers had pushed him over the edge. He discovered that I had provided Rachel with incriminating photos, and Emma stood by as he opened the envelope from his wife, confirming she had a set of those same photos. After a tense meeting with their company's vice president, they both admitted to the affair. Connor lost his job that day, and in his eyes, I had destroyed everything he'd built. According to police reports, Emma had tried to stop Connor from coming to my house. She saw him leave the office with a bat and raced to intercept him in the driveway, but he struck her in the face during the argument. She ended up with a black eye but no other serious injuries. Over the next few weeks, I was wrapped up in legal proceedings and police interrogations. Emma and I barely spoke, and when we did, it was never about the events that had transpired in our home. She was a shell of her former self, having lost her husband, her lover, and her daughter in less than 24 hours. Emma never fully recovered. Throughout the divorce proceedings, Emma remained in touch but never contested the terms or hired a lawyer. I easily secured full custody of Sophia. To my surprise, Emma never accepted the financial settlement. Jack held onto the money for her, but a year later, he returned it to me, as she had vanished by then. She never came back to our home and stayed with her family until she disappeared for good. Sophia and I saw her sporadically during supervised visits, but they were awkward and brief. I ensured Sophia was available for each scheduled visit, whether Emma showed up or not, but she only attended about once every 4 visits. Emma's health had deteriorated, and she had become dependent on painkillers and other medications. By the time she vanished, she was unemployed, isolated, and destitute. No one, not even her family, knew where she had gone. Eventually, Sophia and I sold the house and moved to a new home within her school district. We worked to rebuild our lives, attending counseling to cope with the trauma. While I only went for 6 months, Sophia continued for years, grappling with the emotional fallout of the divorce and her mother's disappearance. It took me 3 years to even consider dating again. When I finally did, I met Jo, an incredibly kind and understanding woman who accepted the complexities of my past. Our relationship progressed slowly, but eventually, we got married about 16 months later. We chose not to have more children, focusing instead on Sophia, who Jo loved as her own. Life gradually stabilized, but there were still moments, milestones in Sophia's life, like her high school graduation, where Emma's absence was felt deeply. I tried multiple times to locate her, enlisting Danny's help, but every lead turned up cold. The prevailing belief was that she likely met a tragic end in solitude. In the end, I was grateful for the strategy one had devised, and for the people who helped me navigate this difficult chapter of my life. Though it was a harrowing ordeal, Sophia and I emerged stronger, and we moved forward as best we could.